What's going on, y'all? And today we'll be covering the day one launch patch for set 9.5. Now, these are the balance changes from the previous week of PBE. This is not like covering the set 9 to 9.5. This is just the balance changes of what we were just now practicing. And yeah, guys, so I played over 100 games at the PBE server. I've been challenger multiple sets, and I've been watching a lot of gameplay. I'm usually pretty good at having my finger on the meta and kind of predicting what will be strong and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm gonna try to do in this video. We'll go through the patch notes. I'll just go through them with you guys, and I'll give a little bit of a meta prediction based off of some of the changes. But hey, guys, a lot of things could change once it's actually live and millions of people are playing the game, opposed to the smaller sample size of PBE and, people aren't playing nearly as serious as they could be, even in in-houses. So let's just get into this. And yeah, so APHELIOS is getting buff. His chakram damage is going up and his moonblast damage. So he previously got a small moonblast damage buff, and now he's getting a chakram damage up. So the thing that's interesting about APHELIOS, and one reason why he's been feeling so bad on the PBE, is a lot of reasons. So he got changed from Deadeye to Gunner, which initially sounds like a really good change, and it is a good change. Overall, going to be great quality of life change for him. It opens up his itemization better. Great change. But with that change comes a lot of growing pains, because it turns out APHELIOS really likes his Deadeye procs, because Deadeye procs allows him to stack his Rage Blade quicker. And if you build items like Sojin, which is actually viable on AD carries now, I'm not too certain about how strong it is, because they did just make this change in the PBE server, and I haven't seen a lot of other people testing it. And you don't get your procs. You've probably noticed Jhin cast a lot slower. Ashe casts a lot slower. They're not getting their Deadeye procs, and so they need a lot of compensation, as well as APHELIOS' frontline tree, Bastions, and all that. The frontline that works best with him is usually still Bastions, is one of the weaker front lines, and we'll get into that because Shin is getting to buffs here as well. Now, I think this actually makes APHELIOS pretty good, and you can look to play APHELIOS. We'll see, and I think people should really look out for the Sojin tech. I think you should really look that out. They buffed Sojin. They gave it a 5% AD bonus. It went from 10% to 15%, and they buffed his Moonblast damage. I think people should really consider putting that on him. Do I think it's best in slot? No. I think best in slot is still Rage Blade. But in the event that you don't have a Rage Blade and you built a Sojin for tempo, and maybe you're playing around AP and then you got a bunch of AD items, I think you should really consider playing Sojin on APHELIOS. Just try it out. Might not be super good. Definitely go for Rage Blade instead. But anyways, we'll talk more about APHELIOS and his tree once we get down to Shin and talking about Juggernauts as well. So Bel'Veth is getting a small buff. Definitely needed. The legendaries do not feel very good right now. Now, is this a buff where you're like, okay, fuck it, let's force legendaries. It's Dragon King time. No. But in situations where you're rolling down and you have an Ionia emblem, or you have, you're looking for playing Nyla and you built Nyla items, maybe consider holding the Bel'Veth if you can and transitioning out of Nyla to Bel'Veth. That could be good right now. Currently on the PBE when we've been playing, you don't look to transition out of Nyla to Bel'Veth. It's just not worth your gold or your time, right? It's just not worth it's not worth it, the stress of flexing your board. But maybe consider that now, but this isn't a fast 9 angle anymore. All right, Milio is getting a main ball damage. This is when he hits the front line. Definitely needed. I've noticed Milio has felt a lot weaker on this week's build of PBE. He was really OP because his kit is pretty overloaded, and then they gutted him. They gutted his damage, and he felt a lot weaker. And so this should help his opener a lot better, right? Help his opener to feel a lot better right now. So I think it's a good change. Cool. Rise, Bilgewater. Getting a damage off. Right now, Bilgewater is the worst version of Rise, and we're going to be playing a lot of Bilgewater because that is one of the new portals, and a lot of them are very fun. So definitely a good buff right now. It just feels like the worst version of Shurima. Shurima farms you more gold, and it gives you CC. And deals about the same amount of damage unless you are really far ahead. Basically, the only time you play Rise Bilgewater is if you are so far ahead, and it's more of a win more. So I don't know. This probably doesn't make Rise Bilgewater good, but this is moving him into a better spot for sure. Okay, Shin is getting buffed. So Shin's getting a 50 shield amount on both ranks. That is actually, since he casts on 3 units, that's actually 150 on each rank. So that's actually a significant buff. Let's talk about Shin. Shin has felt like a 3 cost on PBE right now, and Bastions are probably the worst front. I mean, Bruiser's probably the worst front line, but the only time you play Bruisers is whenever you hit Scion, then it's pretty good. Or you're playing a Bruiser like Rek'Sai build, then it's actually good. But of like the front lines that you actually flex around, Bastions feel like the worst. And the reason why they feel like the worst is because going into PBE, they lowered the power level of all the Bastions on purpose, because they also lowered down Sunder and Shred to try to make it to where it doesn't feel as bad when you don't have the appropriate shredding items, and how oppressive Bastions were on the couple of in-game patches on set 9. I'm not sure how it was last patch, but I didn't play last patch. But you know those APHELIOS patches where Bastions were very oppressive. So they were trying to get away from that, because that is not fun for anybody except for the APHELIOS player. So they're trying to get away from that, and that's why they have felt so bad. So APHELIOS getting a buff, Shin's getting a buff. I think that does open up that tree a little bit. And I know a lot of you guys are probably looking at the Juggernaut changes and thinking about, man, Azir is so strong. Azir is so strong and they didn't do anything to it. All they did was nerf 4 Juggernaut and 6 Juggernaut. I actually do think that doesn't even like affect Azir's build very much, because there's many variations where you only play 2 Juggernaut and you play more around the strategist and like around GP and Bilgewater and that sort of thing. They did nerf Bilgewater as well. So you're probably looking at this, and I've read some comments where people were like, yeah, okay, Azir is still the best comp in the game, and it's just going to be spam, it's going to be B-patched. That might be true. I think Azir is the best comp in the game. I think Azir variations, especially the Soko variation, I have a guide on that if you guys want to know how to play that. The only thing I would change from that guide based on this variation is probably don't chase the 6 Juggernaut unless you have 2 emblems. Now you would probably just dip more into strategist if you have to think about either one. So the thing about balance changes that a lot of people don't think about is that you have to think about relative strength. TFT is so much about relative strength relative to what you could be playing, like the opportunity cost. So one reason why Azir was so strong and Azir's comp is so strong is because Azir is strong, because Soko's strong, but it's because Juggernaut is such a superior frontline to Bastions. Bastions feel so bad, and even if APHELIOS was really strong, his frontline just doesn't feel that good. And think about other comps that are very good right now, like Vanquishers are pretty good, Noxus is pretty good, and what frontline do they utilize? They utilize Juggernauts. So that is why, that is one big reason why APHELIOS has felt so bad, and the Juggernaut tree has felt so much stronger. Now, is Azir still the best comp? Probably. But I just want to mention that in here is that you don't directly have to nerf a comp in order for its relative power to come down, because Shin is getting buffed. APHELIOS is getting buffed. So that does actually open up the meta. But if you guys are looking to hard force something, it probably still is the Azir build. But really look out for the Bastion APHELIOS tech right now. Really look out for that. Okay, so Gunner is getting nerfed on the vertical. I have actually noticed this when people get like high roll double emblem. This has felt pretty strong. Like even I've been practicing the Azir comp, and I've lost to some Gunner boards when they have the vertical, not at 2 Gunner. So this nerf actually makes sense to me. Okay, Juggernaut is going down just at the 4 and 6, which is, I think, a good place to nerf it, because it would be really lame if 2 Juggernaut wasn't a good frontline. And like I just said earlier, there's a lot of Azir variations where you just play 2 Juggernaut. And so I don't think this directly nerfs the Azir build that much. It just nerfs the variations where you go to 4 and 6. But I think you could already just forego doing that, except for in the circumstances where you have double emblem. And if you have double emblem, that's high roll. You know, like you put the emblem on Swain and on Jarvan, that's still going to be super strong. So I think the high roll scenarios where you wanted to play 4 and 6 are going to be very strong. Or if you have 2 healthy and you play the 4 variation, and 2 healthy is very strong in that build because you have Set, Swain, and Warwick, which gives a lot of health to your board. Basically, you have cybernetic bulk in your whole team, helps scale Shurima, all the good stuff, helps your Soko buy time for your Azir to finish them off. So I don't think this actually lowers the power level of the build that much. Okay, Noxus is getting taken down at 7. So this is like the high roll scenario where you play the vertical. And like a lot of people will like re-roll Darius and then will move into Mordekaiser, move items from Samira, that sort of thing. So it lowers that power level a little bit, but in the scenarios where you could play this, like you have a strong Noxus opener and you do that vertical into that, it's still going to be strong, so still play it. Rogue bleed percent is going down. Does this make rogues not meta? I think rogues will be super meta, especially if you're uncontested. And you know, for all the people out there who like to hard force assassins, you know, think people like Jirachi, people like that. They're still going to be forcing this, and they're probably going to Giga climb. So if you want to board a build to hard force every game and just say me rogue, it probably is still going to be super good. I don't think this is enough to take it down. Okay, Sorks is getting a buff on the vertical. So at 4 and 6. Sorks has a problem right now. Sorks does not feel like a very good vertical. Shin getting buff does help. But the problem with Sorks is the removal of Lux. Because just think about the power curve of last set. You go from carrying Malzahar. Malzahar carries your early game, Malzahar and Swain and Void and that sort of thing. And then Vel'Koz starts to carry your comp, and you pair it with Sona, especially once you get the emblem, and that feels very strong. And then you can move into Lux, and you get Demacia active, and you have a lot of burst. And Sorks is like a burst build. Your damage actually comes out pretty fast with Lux, right? And then you move from Lux to Ahri, and then you could duo carry Lux and Ahri, and it's just like you have this very clear power curve. You know, sometimes you don't hit Ahri, and then you just like, you know, he kind of stops you, and you're stuck at a 4th or a 5th. But you have this very nice power curve. But right now, Silco doesn't really benefit a lot from the Sork build because Sork build, especially at the 6 vertical, is a very small frontline build. Now, what's really interesting here is that the 4 got buffed. So the 4 with like a Bastion setup might actually be pretty good with Silco. Maybe put like a Bastion Juggernaut setup if you have Virulent. Not sure. That actually is maybe an angle to look at. But the problem is if you're going into 6 Sorks, unless you're like super high roll with 2 emblems, Silco doesn't actually like those types of boards. He'd much rather just get his AP from Strategist because Strategist gives you a lot more frontline. That's why the build that Silco succeeds so highly in is Azir's build because that build is so much more tanky. And that's why people who try to play Silco and Sorks think Silco's bad. Like bad players think Silco's bad because they try to play him in this way. They try to play him like he's Lux. And it doesn't fill out that way. And the other problem with Sorks right now is when you're going into the vertical, you want to like carry Vel'Koz as like your secondary carry, especially if you don't hit Ahri. And you want to have a place to put that Sork emblem. And that Sork emblem goes on another multicaster usually. And you want to have multicaster active for your Vel'Koz to do a lot of damage. The problem is the best multicaster is still Sona. But you can't activate her trait anymore. Because you can play Jarvan, but there's no Lux. You know, there's Silco. What are you going to do, play Fiora? So it just gets a little weird if you don't have a lot of emblems. The build is very strange. I think you guys should look out for some 4 Sork builds if you want to play Silco. And then when you hit Ahri, it's still going to be good. So I think there's going to be a lot of figuring it out for Sorks this set. It's not as clear cut as it was last set, exactly how to play it. Okay, Vanquisher. Critical strike damage is getting buffed on the vertical, which I think is interesting because I think the 4 Vanquisher builds are the most common ones. So that's really interesting to me that is where the vertical is getting buffed because I think a lot of people play with like Ionia emblem, play 6 Ionia, 4 Vanquisher. There's some 4 Vanquisher, Bilgewater, Juggernaut comps out there where you carry Nyla and that sort of thing. So I think that's a really weird place to buff the comp, honestly. That's very strange. So I think Nyla variations are going to be very strong on launch. All right, let's go over to the second page. I know this screenshot is very small. I didn't make the screenshot. But Rejuvenating Flames, it's getting nerfed a little bit. Cool. I don't really have anything to say about that. Kassadin Riftwalker is getting buffed a little bit. Don't really have anything to say about that. Stationary Support. Items are going from 3 to 2. This augment is broken. It is broken. Like I get this, if you get this offered on 2-1, it is the freest fast 9 of your life, assuming you don't get like the worst items in the world. I mean, even if you do get, like you could just, it gives you direction to play around. Now going from 3 to 2 is a significant nerf, especially if you were taking this on 4-2 or something like that. On 2-1, I think this is still going to be a super good augment, not nearly as broken as it was. So consider still taking this earlier on in the game. I think is not as good once you already have established direction because you could really low roll some items here. All right, Stolen Vitality. The heal is going down. This has been nerfed several times. So this is the Vanquisher augment. So interesting place to nerf Vanquishers. I don't think Stolen Vitality is the indicator to play Vanquishers. I think Vanquishers are just good. So this is an interesting place to nerf it considering that they buffed it as well. But I probably needed a nerf. Okay, Night Harvester Empowered Damage Amp is going down. Night Harvester is a very good item in Rogues and like Juggernaut, Noxus builds, that sort of thing. And those are builds that are performing super well. So this nerf makes a lot of sense to me. So Radiant Stoneplate is going down. So this is because Poppy is so powerful. That's one of the biggest reasons, and she gets Stoneplate. Unless they've changed it. I don't think they changed that. No, it would be in the patch notes if they did. That is so powerful. One of the strongest early game comps right now is to play around Poppy Demacia. It's so strong. So this makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, Bug Fixes, Strategist Soul. Still play it. It's still going to be good. Bug Fixes, Strategist Soul now grants a Night Harvester as stated. Aatrox now has item recommendations. Okay, Vanquisher Emblem now grants 20% critical strike instead of 15%. Very cool. Inconsistency no longer grants double gold. Cool. Fixed an issue causing Shrima Sundisc from dead players with Shrima's Legacy to stick around. Okay. Locket of the Iron Soari now correctly states that it grants 250 shield and now grants 250 shield. Cool. All right. So let's talk again about what do we think of the meta predictions. I think Azir variations are going to be very, 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 very strong. Very strong. Look out for some Sork variations. I just think a lot of people haven't figured out Sork. There could be some tech there. I think there's going to be a lot of people forcing Rogues. I think Rogues are still going to be very strong. I think Noxus, when you have the angle, like you have Total Domination or you have the Noxus opener, I think is going to be very strong. I've played some Noxus on the previous patch, felt pretty good. I think Vanquishers are going to be really strong. And just keep an eye out for Aphelios, guys. Like really keep an eye out for Aphelios and Bastions. Now, it has been very weak, so maybe this is not enough. But man, this is a lot of damage buff, and they just buffed him again. So really, really, really keep an eye out for Aphelios. And hey, keep an eye out for that Sojin tech. I'm not sure if it's strong. I've played a little bit of it. It felt pretty good to me. And they keep buffing what would make that Sojin build strong. So keep an eye out for that. Anyways, that's the comps that I think are strong. As far as legends, I think the legends everybody should be playing right now. I think there's a lot of viable legends, more than what I'm going to say here. But I think some of the best legends are going to be Earth, Ezreal, Bard, and you can roll the dice with Ornn. Like I think Ornn's okay too, but I just think it's probably better just playing around Ezreal. And Bard, just getting extra items. Extra items are really important right now. Every single comp has a duo or a trio carry. Like Azir, you're doing Azir, Silco, MF sometimes. If you play Aphelios, you're probably doing Aphelios and Silco +1. And all that good stuff. Noxus, you have so many carries, right? So that's why extra items are so powerful right now. And then Earth is really good because a lot of verticals are very strong. Bilgewater is strong in the vertical. Shurima is strong in the vertical. They just buffed Sorks in the vertical. So maybe a Sork vertical will be strong. Vanquisher just got buffed in the vertical. Ionia is a pretty decent vertical. So I think those are very, very, very strong. So that's why I think Earth is very good, as well as Earth gives you an emblem, and then his other augments give you items if you end up taking his augments on 3-2 and 4-2. So that's what I recommend to play. I'll be streaming tomorrow, guys. I'll be grinding rank, and we'll see how far we can go up. So if you guys want to see me play and ask me some questions about meta, I'll be covering the meta. I'll be playing, and then I'll be watching. I'll be really, really covering the meta like a hawk this week. But I stream on YouTube. So just subscribe to me on YouTube, and you'll see me on your live feed. Anyways, appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.